Okay. Hi, Casey. How are you?
Hi, good. Thanks for asking.
Well, thanks for coming on the show. It's nice to see you. Nice to have you here. So, you've got, according to your bio, 22 books in total that you've written?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Multiple genre.
How long did it take you to write those?
Each book is different. The longest one, A Family of Strangers, that took 12 years to write.
12 years.
Yeah. Some of them took less. Yeah, they all took less than that. That one, I was stuck, what do you call it, writer's block. And a few times I chose to not write the book. I chose to give it up. I chose to quit. And it just kept coming to me. So I finally had to just sit down and find a way to get over the writer's block.
What was that book called again? The one that took 12 years to write?
A Family of Strangers. It's actually the very first book I started writing. I was watching a Lifetime film and I decided to rewrite the ending. And it started out well. I had no writer's block. And then the thing was, the ending is an unlikable ending. So I already know that no one is really going to like the ending. I just decided I didn't want to get there too quickly. I also didn't want the book to be too long because I didn't want it to start getting boring. So I got blocked when I knew the ending. I just didn't know how to get there without taking too long and taking too short. And that's what took me. Like I said, I just kept getting writer's block and I kept saying, I'm not going to write it anymore. I'm done with this book. And then about a year later, I was like, okay, let me start back up again. And so, yeah, I started it in 2003 and published it in 2015.
Is this what they call a fan fiction?
I'm not even sure what a fan fiction is. I would call it general fiction. It's about so it starts out where you meet a child who is in foster care and nobody wants him. And because he doesn't talk, he doesn't speak. And finally, the person in charge of giving him the foster home decides to adopt him. And he's living his life with this child, no problems. And then the birth mother comes into his life, unannounced, unknowingly. And then you find out exactly why she gave him up. And I don't want to give too much away, but yeah, that's what it's.
Also says on your bio that you are a playwright, graphic designer, fine artist, and fashion designer. So you've got a full plate, it sounds like, yeah?
Yes. So each one of those, it's challenging to talk about each one. Well, it takes time to talk about each one because they came in my life without me really wanting to do any of them. So playwriting started. Um, so that I guess you can call that my first play. I guess you can say was fan fiction. I was watching an episode of Golden Girls and I rewrote the episode into a play. Um, and that's how I started writing plays. And then the second play I wrote, I was in college working in the theater as an usher, and it was a frustrating job. And so I wrote a play around the idea of me being an usher. And then, as far as graphic designer, that was actually back in 2000. The person who was making the flyers for my church was doing multiple jobs at the church, and she asked my mom if someone else could do it, and I was volunteered to make the flyers, and so I did, and that turned into me. At first it was just black ink on white paper, and then for whatever reason I started to care about what I was doing, and I started adding images, and then I started adding borders, and then I started learning how to design flyers and then business cards, then postcards, and then it turned into like a side business because people at the church who were entrepreneurs and had their own businesses started asking me to do work for them, and it wasn't something I planned to do; it just happened. And so, because I enjoy doing it now, I turned it. A graphic artist. I used the graphic design skill to make art. Actually, I don't know if you can see the images behind me are
Yeah.
all created me using
Oh, they're
graphic art.
nice. Yeah.
So, and then the fashion designer, technically, I mean, I struggle using that word because Basically, as far as a fashion designer goes, it's my artwork on clothing, and so that I received an email from a company, and to this day I have no clue how they got my email because I have multiple emails, and the email they use is not attached to my art, so I don't know how they got that email address. They contact me though, saying they've seen my art and they would like for me to join their website, and that was the beginning of me becoming a fashion designer.
So with all of these hats that you're wearing, are you able to make a living doing all of that?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay.
I'm working towards.
We've got something called American History. That was the picture you sent us, and it looks like it's about, are these 9 different books?
Yes, they are. So it's a series. It's for children. I would say grades preschool to about third grade, and maybe fourth grade. So that was inspired by my nephews and nieces. The first book, American History, Americans of African Descent. So when I was in college, I attempted to take an African American class twice, and they got canceled twice because not enough people registered. So I ended up taking just the regular history class, and our final history assignment was to write a research paper on anything that happened in history anywhere in the world. It was very general. And so I decided, being that I wasn't able to take the African American class, to write a paper on African history. And so I went to the library and I got a bunch of books and I started reading, and I realized that we weren't really educated on Black history in school. The only thing they taught was slavery and segregation. They didn't teach about all the inventions and the inventors and innovators and entrepreneurs that helped shape America. And so at the time, it was self-research for myself, didn't really share it with anyone. And then fast forward to 2018. One of my nieces was on my mother's bed reading a book, and I don't know why I got jealous because I felt like she should be reading my books. The thing is, I didn't have any children's books, so that was my inspiration to start writing books for them. And I realized chances are they're not learning about the Black history that I found out either. So I decided to write a book for them. And originally, I gave it to them. I gave it to some of the mothers and fathers at my church who have small children. And then I left it at that. I really had no intentions of going any further. And then as I was sharing it on social media, I kind of felt like, well, there's so much American history that's not taught at all. So I might as well make it a series. And that's how it became a series.
Okay, so you're covering all the various ethnic groups that have come to America. And how do you do this for preschool to 3-year-olds? I mean, what is the language like? It's got to be pretty simple.
Yeah, preschool to third grade. It's very simple, which is why it took me. I mean, by the time I got to book 3, I was regretting that I came up with the idea to do 9 books, because one of the things that was challenging was to first find the people, and then the thing was, do I understand what they did? Because if I don't understand it, how am I going to tell them what they did? And so there were many inventors and innovators I left out because I was reading their history and I had no clue. I mean, they obviously, the fact that there are books about them, they contributed something very well. The thing was, I couldn't comprehend myself, so I wasn't sure how to tell children what they did. So that was the first challenge, was to find people who did something that I understand what they did. And then I had to find a way to say what they did without lessening what they did, if that makes sense, without making it less of what they did, in the way of telling them in a way they can understand it, without making it seem like, without changing what they've done, if that makes sense. So it was challenging. I got through it though.
It also says that you did all the illustrations as well as writing the book, yeah?
Yes, that was only because at the time that I came up with the idea, I didn't have the funds to hire someone to do all the illustrations, so I did them myself.
From the work you've got behind you, it probably looks all right, yeah?
Well, I didn't use my graphic design skills. I used my drawing skills, which aren't as good.
You
So,
free-handed
um,
all the drawings in the book?
yeah.
Wow. How long did that take to do one book?
It depends. Each book took about 2 to 4 days.
Well, that's not that long. And you wrote the book in that amount of time as well?
Yeah, the first thing I did was I wanted to make sure there was an even amount of male and females. And so I first did that. Then I wrote out the description of what they did, and then I did the illustrations, and then I put the pages together, and then created the covers. And so yeah, it took some time. I'm glad the process is over.
Okay. Are you going to do any more, or is that it? Nine is
From
the
that
number,
series,
the max?
so the only one that I don't have is Americans from Antarctica,
Be a
and
short
there
book.
aren't any.
Yeah.
I could only find one. Most people in Antarctica stay there. They don't really travel outside of Antarctica. So that was outside of that, all of the continents are represented. And I mean, there are still more I could do because there are so many more inventors at this moment in time. No, if I can hire a team to do the bulk of the work for me, then yes.
I don't think there's any indigenous people from Antarctica, are there?
Like I said, I could only find one person. I think a musician a musician. Outside of that, from my research, most of them stay in Antarctica. They don't travel out.
Okay. Well, Casey, we got to wind this down. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Do you have a website you want to give out?
I do. It's authorcaseybell.com.
Okay, and there's information about all your books on there?
Yes. And there's also some giveaways and some freebies as well on the website.
Okay, super. Well, thanks again for coming on the show. It was nice meeting you and chatting with you. Best of luck with all of your books.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.